John was a seasoned firefighter. Years on the job had hardened him both physically and mentally. He'd seen his share of tragedies, but nothing could have prepared him for the day he lost Alex. Alex was more than just his colleague. He was his best friend, a brother in arms. They'd faced countless infernos together, their bond forged in fire and courage. But this fire, this one was different. It had ripped Alex away, leaving John with a gaping hole in his heart and a storm of guilt raging within. The sights, the sounds, the smells of that day were seared into John's memory. He could hear the roar of the flames, see the desperate struggle in Alex's eyes as they got separated. The memory haunted his waking hours and invaded his dreams. The guilt was suffocating, a heavy weight on his chest, making it hard to breathe. He replayed the events leading up to the fire, torturing himself with what ifs and if onlys. John questioned his every move. Could he have done more? Could he have saved Alex? The questions echoed endlessly in his mind. The once fearless firefighter was now grappling with an inferno within, one that threatened to consume him. The grief was overwhelming, a relentless ache that refused to subside. Survivor's guilt cast a long shadow over John's life. It followed him everywhere, whispering doubts in his ear. The joy had been drained from his life. The things he used to find pleasure in, spending time with his family, going fishing with his son, now seemed hollow and meaningless. His usual jovial nature was replaced with a brooding silence. His family, though worried, felt helpless. They watched as their once vibrant husband and father retreated into himself, his laughter replaced with a haunted look in his eyes. His wife, Mary, tried to reach him, but John pushed her away, building walls around his pain. He couldn't bear to see the pity in her eyes, the unspoken question of why John, why not Alex? He started withdrawing from his friends and colleagues at the firehouse. The camaraderie that had once been his lifeline now felt like a painful reminder of what he'd lost. The firehouse, once a symbol of brotherhood and courage, now felt like a tomb. Evenings were the hardest. The silence of his empty house was deafening. It was a constant reminder of the life that had been brutally ripped away from him, leaving him lost and adrift in a sea of grief. One Sunday morning, feeling utterly lost, John found himself on the steps of his childhood church. He hadn't stepped foot in a church for years. The pain, the guilt, the overwhelming despair had driven him to seek solace. As he sat in the pew, the familiar words of the hymns and scriptures washed over him. The pastor's sermon was about finding strength in adversity. He spoke of Romans 5:3-5. Suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope. And hope does not put us to shame because God's love has been poured out into our hearts. These words struck a chord deep within John. They offered a lifeline to a man drowning in grief. Could he find hope even in this tragedy? Could he find strength in his faith, a faith he thought he had lost? The pastor's words resonated with him. He spoke of the importance of community, of leaning on each other in times of need. John realized he didn't have to carry this burden alone. He could reach out. He could let others in. Tentatively, at first, John began to open up to his church community. He started attending a grief support group, a decision he never thought he'd make. He'd always considered himself strong, self-reliant,